One of Trump's defining campaign promises was to end the war in Ukraine and to end it fast. His initial claim was that he could resolve the conflict within 24 hours. That was dismissed as hyperbole, yet just weeks into his presidency, diplomatic movement is undeniable. Moscow is at the table, Kyiv is being pressed into negotiations, and European leaders are scrambling to increase their defence budgets and to get involved. But is this rush to peace a genuine breakthrough or a precarious pause before an even greater war? History teaches us that hurried peace deals rarely endure. When a deal is driven more by expedience than by fairness, the suppressed tensions fester and erupt later with greater intensity. You only have to think of the deal at Versailles and particularly read up on the Keynes book, The Economic Consequences of the Peace. Trump's negotiating style, transactional, theatrical, pressure-heavy, might secure a short-term agreement, but at what price? And his name-calling of Zelensky as a dictator has done significant harm to a very brittle relationship. And Ukraine has already faced enormous pressure to make concessions, particularly in ceding control of occupied territories, and Trump has reportedly suggested that Ukraine should give up some of its eastern regions, while Ukraine has countered that such a deal would embolden Russia rather than deter it. If Kyiv is forced to agree to unfavourable terms simply to placate Washington, it risks being left vulnerable to future Russian aggression. Moreover, Trump's personal motivations cannot be ignored, and he thrives on optics. A dramatic handshake with Putin, mission accomplished moment before the 2028 election. But clarity is not belligerence, and questioning his progress is not a call for more destruction. The world needs to weigh whether this peace is real or an illusion built on coerced concessions. Trump's approach has, however, had unintended effects. European nations, long hesitant to increase military spending, are now doing so with urgency. Keir Starmer has pledged to raise Britain's defence budget from 2.3% to 2.5% of GDP by 2027, with a further rise to 2.6%, getting on to 3%. Macron has announced France's readiness to reinforce European nuclear deterrence, and across the continent, nations are realising that a US focused on its own interests means Europe must take charge of its own security. Trump has called for NATO members to raise defence spending to 5% of GDP, a target even the United States doesn't meet. But whether these increases translate into actual strategic independence remains to be seen. The irony is that while Trump pushes for peace, his unpredictability is leading Europe to prepare for war. Despite the scepticism, Trump's ability to apply pressure has yielded results. He's pushed Ukraine towards compromise, encouraged the EU states to take security more seriously, and reportedly brokered a deal granting the US access to Ukraine's rare mineral reserves. Yet his erratic comments about Zelensky, calling him a dictator and a modestly successful comedian, have raised concerns about his long-term commitment to Ukraine. And Zelensky is now set to travel to Washington, reportedly to finalise a minerals deal with the US. But can he trust an administration that has shown such little interest in maintaining alliances? Washington's absence from the third anniversary commemoration of the war in Kyiv was noted with unease by European leaders. It signalled that for Trump, Ukraine is a transactional issue rather than a principled one. One intriguing development is Switzerland's offer to lead a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. While seemingly a diplomatic long shot, the Swiss Guard has successfully protected the Pope for centuries. Could they now be tasked with safeguarding Zelensky and Ukraine's sovereignty, or leading that effort? The idea of a neutral force ensuring stability is appealing, yet its effectiveness remains questionable without firm military backing. While a ceasefire might end active hostilities, it would not necessarily bring stability. If Russia is rewarded with territorial gains, it will not hesitate to repeat its aggression, and if Ukraine is left without robust security guarantees, it may find itself in an even weaker position should conflict reignite in the future. I suppose one option for the Swiss proposal would be for Swiss troops to be on the ground, funded by other European countries. Trump has suggested that a peace deal may require Ukraine to make territorial concessions, but the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties prohibits agreements that come at the expense of third parties. No matter how much Trump or Putin may want to finalise the conflict, Ukraine cannot legally be forced into ceding its own sovereignty. And given the number of Ukrainians who have died for that land, I find it implausible that Ukraine will willingly surrender territory that has been taken by an aggressive neighbour. By pushing Ukraine into a rapid peace, therefore, Trump risks setting a precedent that might embolden other aggressors worldwide. If territorial conquest can be legitimised through negotiation, if territorial conquest can be explained away by backdating events and claiming that Ukraine somehow was responsible for their own invasion, as these extraordinary people on the internet are doing, this opens doors to aggression elsewhere. China will take note regarding Taiwan, and other revisionist states may well follow suit. Peace should not come at the cost of principles that uphold the international order. Ultimately, the question is not whether peace is desirable. Of course it is. War is always awful. The real question is whether this peace will last, or whether it's merely a tactical pause before a greater, more devastating war. As Lavrov softens his rhetoric, which I think, reading between the lines, is exactly what he's doing, it doesn't necessarily exonerate Putin, but nor does it mean the conflict is near a genuine resolution. The world must ensure that any agreement is not just expedient, but enduring. Trump may yet surprise his critics by achieving a settlement that secures Ukraine's sovereignty and deters further Russian aggression, but history warns us that rushed deals, dictated by short-term optics rather than long-term strategy, pave the way for future conflict. Clarity and scrutiny are not obstacles to peace. They are the essential safeguards to ensuring that peace is lasting and genuine.